Great, thanks, Joe. And good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, and welcome to our webcast. My name is Josh Galdi. I'm the Senior Product Marketing Manager at Keynote, and I'll be your moderator and host today. With me is Chris Carnegie, Senior Solutions Consultant, who will be providing the live demo. Before we begin, let's review what we are going to cover. Today, we plan to share with you a brief market overview and how Keynote delivers solutions to meet these challenges. We'll also cover an overview of our HP integration, followed by a live demonstration where we will cover how to record and play back object-level scripts within HP on real mobile devices. We'll also discuss how to inspect mobile application objects directly without relying on image matching. We'll also discuss ways to leverage Keynote's UFT add-in to increase the reusability of your test scripts, followed by Q&A. Now, before we begin, let me review some housekeeping items. This webcast is being recorded and will be distributed via email to you, allowing you to share it or watch it again later. Your line is currently muted. Please touch *0 for operator assistance if you experience any web or audio issues. Please feel free to submit any questions during the call. You can do this in the Q&A panel in the bottom section of the window. The slides of today's presentation will be available for download at the end of the presentation. So let's begin. We've reached a tipping point for mobile. Across industries, mobile is no longer an optional touch point for consumer engagement. It is required. Clearly, consumers are demanding access via mobile, with 1 billion apps downloaded in 2013, according to Gartner. Gartner also predicts that there will be 77 billion in anticipated revenue generated through mobile apps by 2017. Mobile is the #1 technology priority for retailers in 2014, and 2 out of 3 banks predict 100% of their customers will be using their mobile services by 2017. Whether we are talking about consumer apps or internal business applications, users want access on demand via their mobile smartphones and tablets, and this is easily seen in the increase of traffic and sales for consumer apps in recent years. And it's not good enough to simply be there. The imperative facing companies is to capitalize on the mobile opportunity quickly and with high levels of quality and performance. The desktop web experience has raised expectations with both consumers and employees. One survey found that only 16% of consumers would try a failing app more than twice before dumping it. Another study found that app failures have cost businesses over $60 billion. And yet another said that almost 80 to 90% of mobile apps were eventually deleted from users' phones in 2013 alone. You simply must deliver an awesome experience. Before we turn it over to Chris, we'd like to ask our first poll to get us started. When the poll appears, simply click on the answer that makes the most sense to you. Okay, here's our first question. It's a simple one. You can choose all that apply. What type of mobile applications is your company or organization providing? Websites, hybrid applications, native applications, or all of the above? Please select the one that makes sense to you. Great. Looks like we're getting some great responses. Thank you for everyone. Please go ahead and continue submitting. Looks good. Great. And it's looking pretty consistent. We're seeing a lot of website development, which makes sense. Looks like a lot of native apps as well. Looks like not as many hybrid applications, which I think might change in the future. We'll see. And yeah, let's go ahead and close the poll, and we can broadcast the results. Fantastic. Looks like both websites and native, the tie between websites and native applications makes sense. We look forward to seeing that change in the future. We can go ahead and remove the poll panel. Excellent, thank you. To meet these challenges mentioned before, and to provide the needed testing for your mobile application and website testing, Keynote offers several solutions that provide mobile testing on real mobile devices from anywhere, giving you the ability to increase your efficiency and ROI all on the same platform. As we look at helping you extend your business, we want you to know that Keynote's products and services rest on an integrated fabric of back-end infrastructure, with a consistent user experience that allows you to more closely integrate the different functions within your organization. The solution we are going to focus on today is mobile app and web testing. When it comes to testing, it is critical that you are able to test on as many real devices as possible. Our global network provides the largest and most comprehensive in the industry. We work closely with all major carriers so that you can test in every possible configuration and connectivity in the platform. This gives your remote teams and multiple users the ability to test the functionality of any mobile application, including native, hybrid, iOS, Android, Windows Phone, and BlackBerry, 24/7 from anywhere in the world. With it, you can save screenshots, generate device video to convey bugs to your teams, and no longer do you have to source devices and provision and manage plans. No more scrambling to find specific device models passed among employees. And Keynote is the complete end-to-end testing environment for all your testing needs and is backed by our 24/7 management and support. Automated testing brings a more efficient way to perform the same repeated manual tests over a shorter period of time, allowing you to increase the volume of testing you have to perform, thereby increasing the quality of your products and improving ROI of your testing tools. With Keynote's mobile testing solution, you're able to easily record test scripts at the object level just by interacting with the device, which is something we will go into detail today. This creates test cases with advanced logic and data-driven iterations, creating test sequences with hundreds of test cases that run across multiple devices. Run ad hoc testing anytime or schedule it at your convenience. You can view success rates, detailed errors, and screen-by-screen results in the web-based reporting portal. You can also email and share these test results with colleagues to provide continuous debugging functionality, all of which will be discussed this afternoon. Of course, we know that you don't use Keynote in isolation, so it's critical that we integrate with and leverage your existing investments in development and automated testing tools from major partners such as HP, which is what we're discussing today, as well as IBM, Jenkins, Selenium, and Worksoft for SAP applications. You can also utilize our own Java APIs to program and execute scripts from existing test tools or integrate with your own build process to support continuous testing such as Jenkins. And how do we do this, you might ask? Well, let me show you what's behind the scenes. What you see here are real mobile devices. We take each device and connect all the inputs and outputs to a live server. This approach is patented by Keynote and is called direct-to-device. This hardware approach gives you the complete and unbiased view from the consumer's perspective of how your app or website will function in the real world, all without leaving your desk. You can control every aspect of the device, including the battery and the accelerometer, as well as touchscreen control and text message communication. It takes into consideration the level of reliability that is required for mobile application testing and QA. Super. Now let's ask our second poll. When the poll appears, simply click on the answer that makes the most sense to you. You can also select more than one if you choose. The question is, for those testing mobile apps or websites, how are you doing it today? Are you using simulators? Are you using real devices in your hand, carrying the plans, etc.? Do you have a device library, a bunch of devices sitting in a room, etc.? Or are you using a remote device technology such as Keynote / Device Anywhere or other tools? That is a remote device technology where you're actually able to access real devices in the cloud. Great, looks like we're getting some great responses. Great, looks like there's a lot of device libraries out there. That's interesting. And as expected, well, let's go ahead and continue. Feel free to answer the question, and we'll close the poll shortly. Great, looks good. Looks like we're going to have a winner here. Okay, great. Let's go ahead and close the poll. And looks like the winner was real devices in hand, which that makes sense. I think you're going to hear a little bit more about how you can use cloud-based testing. It doesn't mean that you need to eliminate your real device library. It simply is the ability to centralize this device access in the cloud so that people can access it from your teams from anywhere in the world, whether you're using a local environment or you're needing to remote access into these devices for a diversified team. Awesome. Well, let me talk a little bit about automation, because obviously this is what we're here to talk about today, and it's kind of as a ramp up to our HP UFT integration. We want to talk a little bit about our automation solution. And so let me just dive into that a little bit, and then we'll continue on to our HP UFT integration. As you know, Keynote offers several mobile testing solutions for both manual and automated testing, as I mentioned earlier. For the purposes of today's discussion, we will focus on our automated mobile testing solution powered by Keynote's Device Anywhere technology, which allows us to extend access to real mobile devices from other build and test tools. Our automated mobile testing solution offers several ways to script your repetitive tests. Typically, it is done through image or text-based recognition, which is industry standard practice for those that are familiar with automation. We recently announced support of object-level scripting, which gives you the ability to script at the object layer, not on the visual layer. This minimizes errors and allows for change in the visual layer without impeding the script from completing its task. And we offer many ways to access these real mobile devices, including a downloadable Java-based client, our own Java API as I mentioned earlier, or an integration with leading test tools including HP UFT/QTP, IBM Rational, Jenkins, Selenium, and others. This allows you to never have to leave HP UFT and yet get the same ability as our proprietary scripting engine. And for our last poll, let's just dive a little bit into this HP UFT. Before we get into the demo, I want to talk a little about specifically about HP UFT. We want to go ahead and ask this question. What test tool is your organization currently using for both either desktop or mobile or both? You can select all that apply. Does it test management tools such as HP ALM/QC or Rational? IBM automation tools such as HP UFT/QTP? An open source tool or other or none? Please go ahead and let's enter your selections now. You can choose all that apply. I know there's a lot of variety out there, a lot of teams using different, they might start using QTP, but they also might be using open source to complete other actions. They might manage it all through QC, so we totally get if you're going to be using a couple of these or all of these. We just wanted to, it's a great understanding of how many of us are on the call are using UFT and or other tools to do so. Great, looking good, thank you. We can go and close the poll. Super. And it looks like automation tools such as HP UFT/QTP is the winner with QC and HP ALM QC as the second. That's great. You can go ahead and hide the poll. Great. At this time, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Chris Carnegie, one of our solutions consultants here, and he'll take it from here and take us through our integration with HP UFT and object-level scripting and into the demo. Chris, take it away.
Thank you. So as Josh mentioned, Keynote recently announced the support of object-level scripting from HP UFT or QTP, depending on what version you're using. This greatly increases your testing efficiency, enabling the HP UFT, again QTP testers to inspect mobile application objects directly. You no longer are limited to relying on image matching or text matching as your only means for validation within your test script checkpoints. The capability also increases the level of reusability of your test scripts, which of course reduces the level of maintenance required and cuts the overall script maintenance cost. Because you can now leverage object level interaction and validation during your testing, those scripts now become portable from device to device. If you're relying strictly on image matching, then they can be somewhat limited to certain screen sizes or screen resolutions. With the ability to now use object-level scripting, you're portable from device to device within that platform. For what we're going to look at today is Android. So you can create a single object-level script on one Android device and run across any Android device that your application is supported on, because you're no longer relying on something that's visually based on the device screen. Our expanded object commands with HP's UFT also give users the ability to interact directly with web elements. This capability has been enhanced for Android Chrome browser, eliminating the need for instrumentation to test any mobile web application or site while using that browser. The new version of the add-in also provides access to simplified level of descriptive programming for mobile, making it easier to interact with objects and parameters. So here's a screenshot of what it's going to look like from within UFT, or again QTP. I'll reference it as UFT, but those of you running older versions known as QTP, this remains the same as well. So this is probably a good time to transition into the demo. So if you'd like to get a closer look, simply click on the full screen icon or in the drop down in the upper right of your screen. And as a reminder, please feel free to submit questions below in the Q&A panel, and we'll answer as many of the questions that are submitted at the end of the presentation. I'll share my screen in just a moment. Okay, my screen should be shared, and again, as a reminder, simply click on the full screen icon or on the drop down in the upper right of your screen to make this full screen here. So what we're looking at here is HP's UFT, or Unified Functional Testing application. The Keynote add-in for UFT allows you to access the real mobile devices in the cloud directly from UFT. So what we're seeing on the right here is the Device Anywhere pane that is added as part of the add-in, and I'm actually interacting with a real mobile device in the cloud, in this case a Samsung Galaxy S4. We're going to start out with just a brief introduction to just manually interacting with the device, taking some screenshots and some collaboration, and then we're going to jump into the real meat of the demonstration, which is using UFT to do automated testing against this real mobile device in the cloud and leveraging this new object level scripting that we've introduced. So we can do manual testing, like launching our application by clicking on the device screen in this Device Anywhere pane. We can interact with the device just as we would with that phone in our hand. We can type onto the device. We can interact with it. We can scroll just as you would with that phone in your hand, except you're doing so from within UFT. So you can utilize your existing test tool to do this manual sort of testing. Click on the home button, come back to the home screen. If you're doing some manual testing and you find a bug or a defect, we can collaborate with our team now by right-clicking on that device screen and exporting what we call frames. It's taking a screenshot. We can export screenshots, or we can export a video from our interaction with this device. And we can either do it from the current screen as we see here, which in this case is actually just the home screen of the phone, or we can tell it to export or save a video from history. That history is much like a DVR recording on your home TV or home cable box. I can pick and choose screenshots or a period of time from my most recent 10 minutes of control of this phone. So I can create a virtual walkthrough or a visual walkthrough of what it was that I was doing on this device or within my application when I arrived at a bug or a defect. And again, this is during my manual testing efforts. Now, moving towards our automation testing efforts, we can utilize the built-in recording functionality that your team is likely already familiar with within QTP or UFT. So I'm going to go ahead and open up or create a new test. Select the GUI test. And it's going to create a new canvas for me here. And I can click on record. And what this allows me to do is actually click on the device screen. And I have different methods to actually record. By default, it's going to be object-based. So again, I'm going to create a test that is going to be portable across all of my Android devices. We can always default back to our UI-based as well. That allows us to do image and text validation. And there are times where you may want to do image or text validation to make sure that not only is your flow working, so you can get from point A to point B within your application. Say it's a shopping application like Amazon. I can do object-based testing to make sure that I can get from the home page to adding something to my cart to checking out. So I can do my functional testing or my flow testing with objects, but I might also want to utilize some UI-based testing, which means I make sure that the images or the text that are presented to my users are correct as well. So we allow you to choose which method you want to actually test. We're going to focus on the object-based today because that's the enhancement to the add-in that we've announced. So I'm recording. Again, it's using the built-in recording capability that your team's already used to. And I can click on the Amazon icon. You'll notice I see here in my object viewer, while I'm still recording, it's clicking on the object named Amazon. Now, we mentioned earlier that we can actually view the entire object tree here. If I click on object tree, here's every object that is available on this actual home screen. I'm not on the home screen now, but when I captured this object tree, I was on the home screen. So we can see I see phone, contacts, messaging. So we are interacting with and launching the application at the object level, not looking at the image. So even if your icon changes, if you're within your application, a button changes, text changes, it doesn't matter because we're interacting at the object level. Now, the other thing you'll notice is that I've actually created the script here. So it automatically creates the VB script, in this case against the Galaxy device. This can be parameterized to drive through a list of devices without making any changes to the test. Excuse me, creates the object in the UFT object repository, and it then tells it to go ahead and touch that object. So let's step through. I clicked on the icon. Then maybe I want to click on Shop by Department. Again, it's going to find the object labeled Shop by Department. And though this may look like it's doing object or text recognition, it is not doing text recognition. As you can see, we see all of the objects. We see our linear layouts, we can see our spans, and here's what we're actually looking through. So it may look at the surface like we're reading the device screen. We are not. We're looking at those underlying objects. So we can step through and record our flow and then play it back. We can insert any sort of additional looping and branching and logic just as you would any other UFT or QTP test. So what this really allows you to do is extend your existing UFT knowledge of your team and extends it into now mobile testing, and then with this enhanced object-based scripting, both interaction and validation-based. So maybe I've clicked on this Shop by Department. I want to make sure I now have this menu open. Rather than clicking on the device screen, I want to tell my UFT script to actually validate. So I can click now here to say I want to wait for an object. I click there. It shows me the current object list on the screen. And maybe I say I want to validate that I see this text on the screen called Shop by Department. And again, it's not looking at the text visually on the screen. It's looking at the object that is labeled Shop by Department. I can also look by object ID and select here, and it will show me the object ID. It's object ID number 3, it's a widget, and it's text view number 2. So I can decide how it is that I want to actually validate. Once I select, I say save, and it adds that line of my script. So this recording interface makes things very easy. Now, if your current Device Anywhere or Keynote mobile testing customer using this Device Anywhere platform, and you have a library of automated scripts already created in Device Anywhere Studio, you can utilize those as well from within QTP by simply clicking on this execute action or execute test case. Current Keynote mobile testing customers will recognize the words action and test case, but at a high level it allows you to execute existing test cases or test case components that you've created in Device Anywhere. It allows you to execute them directly from a UFT test. So you don't need to recreate all of your work effort that you may have already done inside of the Device Anywhere interface. Now, I'm going to step back here. I'm going to stop recording my test. I'm going to open up a test that I've already created and show you one in action. We're going to open up an Amazon search here. And this is a test that I've created. And I've kind of broken it down a little bit so you can see what it's doing. But let's step through here. So I'm using the built-in reporter function. I'm telling it to enable all reporter actions. It's going to record all screenshots. And that's another thing we'll look at in the results is as I'm stepping through here, I'm taking screenshots of every interaction and validation that I do on this mobile device. So not only are you going to get a success or done fail result, you're also going to get screenshots. Because what if there was a failure? You want to be able to convey those results to your developers or to your testing teams. So the first step here is going to close my application. Again, it's going to close the Amazon application. It's actually looking at the activity and it's launching it from the operating system, in this case on this Android device. I then relaunch it to make sure that I have a clean start, that nothing's going to interfere with my application. I then wait and verify that I see the object that is titled Shop by Department. Again, it's looking for the object, not the item on the screen or the text on the screen. And then I'm using my built-in looping function within UFT. So again, we're not reinventing the wheel. We're allowing you to use your existing QTP or UFT expertise and extend that now into mobile testing. So I'm going to loop through a data sheet or data table that I have here that has 3 items. Kindle Fire, Chromecast, and Roku. And I'm going to loop through that and actually search for those items within the Amazon application, and I'm going to validate that those searches are all successful. So let's go ahead and run this. I'm going to say, let me get my Device Anywhere window back here. And I'm going to go ahead and run this. You run it just like any other UFT test. First thing it's going to do is close the application, and it's going to launch it. It's going to validate that it sees that Shop by Department button. It's going to set focus on the search field here, and it's going to search through my list. Again, Kindle Fire. Just going to make sure that I see results. It's then going to make sure that I see that. It's going to clear the search field, and then it's going to step into the next row. Make this a little bit bigger if I can here for you. Chromecast. And again, if I had a list of multiple devices here in my cloud, I could parameterize that device name that you see, Samsung SGH M919, and I could then tell it to run through that list of devices as well. Because this test is written using objects, or our object level scripting and recognition, I don't need to make any changes to the script. I can simply run it across all of my devices without a change. So here we're going to again validate we see this, come out, and here are our results. So you'll see your results in the results viewer just as you would any other test. We see that every step was successful, and then here's what I mentioned earlier, we actually take our screenshots. So here's our screenshot after we closed the application. You'll notice the step was close application. We launch our application, and then we verify that we see Shop by Department, and here's our screenshot. We saw this button. We saw the object that represents the button. So we gather those details just as we would for any other QTP or UFT-based test. Here's again some more images, and we can see the date and time. So you have a full audit trail, just as you did for any other test. Now this is a very simple test. It's running through and looping through a list of items in a data table. But again, it allows you to use your existing QTP or UFT knowledge and simply extend it into mobile testing. So any advanced logic, any looping, branching, any of that can be handled because you're using your the UFT or QTP VB script just as you do today for any other test. Now the other thing that we can do is use this test now. It's just like any other UFT or QTP test, and you can now drive this from Quality Center. If you're using Quality Center as your test management tool, Quality Center will see this just as any other QTP UFT test, and you can then drive your testing from there as well. You can of course mix and match the interaction and validation points. So you could insert some database calls here. You can insert some website calls or tests from here as well. You're not limited to just using the Device Anywhere interface or operations here. If you want to do a few steps within your application and then maybe do a database call to check on some values, you absolutely can mix and match those things. QTP or UFT sees these just as any other operation. They can be mixed and matched. And then one last thing that I wanted to show here was, excuse me, that the objects themselves that are created, we see these objects that are created here, these DA objects, these don't just exist in isolation in the Device Anywhere pane. If we come into the object repository of UFT or QTP, we have the ability to see all of these objects as well. So we can easily rename these to say home screen of Amazon app, and it will not only update in the object properties here, but it will also update in the in your actual VB script. So all of these objects are created in the UFT or QTP repository. They don't exist in isolation, just in Device Anywhere pane. All right. I hope that was a good overview of the UFT add-in and using it to extend your existing testing into mobile applications and mobile websites on real mobile devices in the cloud. and got a good understanding as well of the enhanced object level scripting to create portable scripts across devices that will reduce your maintenance costs to extend into additional devices or platforms.
Great, thanks Chris. Let's go ahead and switch back to slides. Fantastic. Now we're going to take some questions. It's a great opportunity. We have a few minutes to address your questions. We've already got a few coming in, so go ahead and feel free to enter any question you might have in the Q&A panel below the slide that you see here. We'll get to as many as we can, and if we don't get to your question today, we will follow up with you directly after the call. Looks like we're getting our first question from Andy, who says, what if a device runs an app okay at the object level, but rendering is bad on a particular device or resolution?
It's a very good question, Andy. So that's why we see the majority of our users actually doing testing at both object level and at the image and text level. As you mentioned, it may work well or may run well just doing that object level because it's getting you from point A to point B, but it may not be presented properly to your users. So the majority of our customers are actually doing kind of a multifaceted approach. They will do their regression testing against the devices out in the cloud here using object level. They'll be able to create that suite of tests that make sure that all of their flows are working, but they will also then utilize image and text-based validation and interaction to make sure that their users are having the proper experience. Because in the end, the users do not see your underlying objects. They just know whether or not your button says login or if your logo is correct. So they use that multifaceted approach to make sure that not only is the functionality working, but also that their brand is being represented properly.
Okay, great, thank you. Got another question here that says, can we uninstall and reinstall the application?
Yes, we can. So as part of your test, either manually or programmatically, you can have your application uninstalled and reinstalled. Many customers are doing this as part of their continuous build process. They will automatically uninstall the build that is currently on the device, and it will then install the new build, let's say it's a nightly build, and then trigger the execution of these tests, whether it be from the Device Anywhere Studio interface or from UFT.
And will it be done in an automated way, or does it need to be done from the Play Store, or how does that happen?
Yeah, it's a very good question. So it can be done either way. You can have the application downloaded from the publicly available stores, so the Apple App Store, for example, or the Google Play Store. You can also have it download an application from a third-party source, whether you're using AirWatch or another hosting service or MDM. You can also install it directly from your own local machine or a network drive. So if you have an IPA file or an APK file, you have the ability to upload that application to the device or devices of your choice programmatically, or you can do so manually.
Great. And how about, I guess someone's asking a pretty broad question here, but about the possibility of descriptive programming?
Yep, it's another good question. So we do have the ability to do some descriptive programming. You can create empty objects in the repository and then fill them in descriptively while you're actually creating your VB script. So you create a placeholder basically in the object repository and then fill it in with your descriptive programming.
Okay. And then another great question around the camera. How does it validate image capture from the device, from the actual camera? What can we do to support that, whether through software or other based solution that doesn't require the hardware?
Sure. So there's a few ways that we can handle image capture or image validation. It really depends on the use case. But if you just want to make sure that your camera module is working properly within your application, we have the ability to trigger the camera just as you would, a user would, with that phone in their hand. Let's say Amazon, for example, says you can scan a barcode or take a picture. You could click on that button or that icon on the device, either manually or in your automated test, and you can validate that you're seeing a live image. These devices, as you saw earlier in the slide from Josh, the devices are sitting in a black box in a data center. It's a lights-out enterprise-grade deployment model. But we also have the ability to use local devices plugged into your own computer. So you could then also actually take a scan of a barcode or a picture of a product, having your Android device or your iPhone device plugged into your computer, your laptop, and that can be part of, again, a manual test or an automated test. So you really have the ability to fully test the functionality and the usability of the camera module within your application.
Okay. And then I knew, obviously, as expected, we talked a little bit about Android today, and we got an obvious question around iOS. If I have an IPA, how do we support iOS? If I have an IPA file, how can I install the application? And obviously, do we support object-level scripting for iOS devices on HP UFT?
Yeah, so very good question. So we do. The answer to the first part of that question is if you do have an iOS application, you can install that application to these devices out in the cloud. Again, you can either install it from the Apple App Store if it's production. Likely you're talking about a pre-release application. You want to do your QA testing. If you have that IPA file handy on your local machine or on a network drive, you can install it programmatically or through our manual interface we looked at a moment ago. You also can excuse me, download it or install it from a mobile device management solution if you're using something like Mobile Iron, or if you're using something like AirWatch, you can install there as well. Now, object-level scripting is supported on iOS devices as well. Today we just looked at Android, but the same functionality and the same insight into those objects is available for iOS devices, both within Device Anywhere Studio or, in today's case, inside HP's UFT testing tool.
Okay. And how about QTP11? I know, do we support that, and is that the plan?
Yeah, so we support QTP 11, 11.5, and 12. They are certified add-ins by HP.
Okay. And let's see, so this is a great question. We get this a lot. If I build a script on Android or iOS, can it run on, each other's devices?
Yeah, so if we're talking about object level, which is kind of the focus for today's webcast, then the answer is yes. You will be able to create a series of objects for Android and a series of objects for iOS. Now, the only reason you cannot run the same script, the exact script for iOS and Android, is because those objects are different. That's just the inherent nature of those two platforms. But you can write a single script that will run across all Android devices and another script that will run across all of your iOS devices. Now, we can get creative inside of UFT or even in Device Anywhere Studio to create a single script that will automatically know that, okay, this time we're running against an Android device. Use these Android objects, and the next run may be against an iOS device, so let's use these iOS objects. But again, that limitation, per se, does not come from the Device Anywhere platform, the Keynote mobile testing platform, or even UFT. It's just the differences inherent in those two different platforms. The objects are not going to be identical.
Great, that's awesome. And I know we get this a lot as well around, talk a little bit about the learning curve for QA consultants, particularly around if they're familiar with UFT, if they already know UFT, how steep is it to be able to start scripting on using Keynote's mobile testing platform?
Sure. So we definitely get that question a lot. I've worked with a lot of people out in the field doing training and deployments. And generally, the consensus that I get from people that we work with is that the learning curve is not with the tool itself. The learning curve is with the devices and the device diversity that they're testing against. For example, if you're an iPhone user and you know iPhones inside and out, pretty basic interface, but you're tasked with testing Android. You don't know Android. You don't know the menu systems. You don't know how the different back buttons work. It has more buttons on it, basically, than an iPhone. Generally, the learning curve is around the devices and how they operate, not the tool. You saw the built-in recorder that we have here in the UFT add-in. We have that same recorder in the Device Anywhere interface. It's very easy to start scripting and clicking on the device, and it will record the exact flow that you're going through on that phone. So the learning curve is actually very, very minimal from the tool perspective. The learning curve is really on learning the devices and how they operate, especially if your application behaves differently from platform to platform.
Okay. In terms of complexity, do you find, you've obviously worked with a lot of customers and prospects in building test environments for them using UFT. Have you found iOS or Android different in terms of complexity, or one more complex than the other to automate on? What's been your experience?
I don't really see either being different in terms of complexity because we are able to record that flow within your application. It's really identical. The differences come from, again, just knowing the devices and their behavior. Generally, applications, once you're inside of that application, say Amazon, for example, just because that's what we use today, the Amazon application on an iPhone and on an Android, the flow is the same. So automating against it is going to be the same as well. It's less about the actual automation of the application. It's more understanding just how your application behaves on those different platforms. If the application behaves the same on both platforms, your scripting is going to be very simple. If it behaves differently, the scripting will still be very simple as long as you understand those differences in the actual behavior. But because we have that recorder, it's very easy to do regardless of the platform that you're testing against.
Okay, great. And one of the last questions we got here is, how do we, is there a trial version of the integration? How does that work? I know there's a slide coming up on that, but maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. As Josh mentioned, there's a slide with some contact information coming up shortly. But we do have the ability to have a trial or offer a trial for you. What we generally do is we'll work with you and my team, my solutions team, to understand what it is that you're looking to accomplish from a testing perspective, and we'll work with you to design a custom trial to make sure that you are seeing the things that you're interested in seeing. There's not really a one-size-fits-all because every organization is looking to do something slightly different. Ultimately, the end goal is to provide quality applications for your customers so that they have the experience with your brand that you have promised. And the ways about going about that may be slightly different. You may have different types of applications, different integration points, different existing testing frameworks for your traditional desktop applications and websites. So we want to work with you interactively to make sure that you get the most value out of a trial.
Great. And one last question here is around, is there any difference when you're automating scripts based on app type? So web, hybrid, native, is there any unique differences? I mean, I would imagine because it's object, the answer would be no.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, the objects, of course, are going to be different from a native application than, let's say, a website or a hybrid application. But we still have visibility into those objects. But they will be different because, again, it's looking at the objects from the actual application itself. And those are the objects that your development team or your designers have inserted into that application. So they will be different from application, let's say native application versus a hybrid versus a web. But we do have visibility into all of those objects. But they will be different based on how your developers or your third party decides to implement them within your application.
Okay, great. Thanks, Chris. Awesome. So speaking of trial and getting started, if you're not a customer yet, please feel free to email us, get access to the adapter, and to discuss your automation needs. You can get a hold of us at info@keynote.com or by calling 1-650-403-2451. This phone number there. If you're a current customer of Keynote, feel free, please reach out to your account manager about our UFT adapter and how to get access to it. As we mentioned, the free trial, not just of the adapter. Obviously, we have to give you a free trial of test automation as well, giving you access to the cloud devices and basic training and support. And that pretty much wraps it up. Thank you all. Hopefully you get a few minutes back of your day. Please, if you see the windows on your screen, has all the URLs, including how to contact us directly, how to learn a little bit more about our HP UFT integration, as well as some docs you can download, including the brochure that we have on our UFT data sheet there, as well as the slides from today's presentation. Should you have any questions, feel free to let us know. Reach out to us directly at info@keynote.com. And at this point, I'll turn it back to Joe.
And thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This concludes today's conference. Thank you for your participation, and you may now disconnect. Speakers, please hold for your post-conference.